Good evening, everybody, and welcome to another live edition here on the Rock Pile. Tonight, the Rock Pile kicks off the No Huddle Podcast. Excited to bring the guys on to talk some college football for the opening week of the show. We'll try to run as many as we can. Last year, we got through. I think we did over 10 shows last year, all the way through New Year's. So I'll keep everybody posted on the next show. We'll try to plan on many more. So tonight we'll kick things off here with the guys. Let's bring them on. See what's going on, gentlemen.
What's up, Rock?
How's it going,
buddy?
Well, I'm a little intimidated here by CBus because I haven't talked to him. You haven't called the radio show, and I can't tell you how long.
It's been a while, but I promise I'm no short of opinion. I promise you.
No, I know that. Yeah, every Sunday we say, "Well, where is he? He hasn't called in to give us the business." I thought you'd want to talk the Indians, in the playoffs for baseball. It looks like
maybe we're gonna keep our fingers crossed.
Your Brownies. There's a lot of Ohio sports going on.
I know. Donovan Mitchell to the Cavs. We're the hot spot to be up in Cleveland.
I know.
Sports-wise. So
we got Jake on. We got Coach Medicis, who better late than never. You just made it though in the nick of time.
Technical difficulties tonight.
So what happened? Your camera broke on the other computer?
Yeah, apparently I ruined the camera on my computer, so I had to borrow my wife's, and she hasn't been on the computer in a while, so I had to fix some settings and ask for some passwords, and we're scrambling here last minute, but we're here, ready to go, ready to talk Ohio State, Cleveland, and anything else that Nick from CBus wants to talk about.
Listen, some of the guys messaged me earlier, and they said, "What's the over/under on how many times you want to fire Dino Babers? How often are you going to talk Michigan and Ohio State?" I said, "Listen, right now, Dino Babers looks like a hero. He's 2-0.
Let's not go crazy.
But we'll see. We'll see what happens this week. So, well, listen, guys, I just want to kick things off with some opening statements, and I'm going to start it first. How about the FCS making a big noise, a big splash? Holy Cross out of the Patriot League beats Buffalo. You had Incarnate Word, who I'm not sure if anybody knew that played any football there. They beat Nevada. Eastern Kentucky in 7 overtimes beats Bowling Green, which I said, and this is Nick where I thought CBus you were going to call in. I said Urban Meyer will be the next head coach at Bowling Green. Mark it down. I still think it's set up for him to go there.
They can't pay him enough.
And then Weber State beats Utah State, and Utah State, Coach Anderson, who came over from, I think it was Arkansas State, and they get smacked by Weber State, who's a powerhouse in the FCS. So great week for the FCS to start things off here in week 2. Jake, what do you got for us?
No, I mean, we had some big upsets, which are always nice. And then I was always surprised that you lose a game, but yet you get moved up in the top 25 with Texas. Even though they had a great game against Alabama and right there to the end. They still lost, but they still jumped a lot of teams that were still 2-0 that got moved up in the top 25. So, you definitely see the atmosphere of college football, that nothing beats that. Those Texas fans definitely helped Texas stay in the game, even with their quarterback going down. And then just with the upsets, these schools paying these schools over $1 million to come in, and they walk out with the win, and nothing better than that.
Well, I'll tell you, I'll say this, and I'm sure at some point we'll talk about Texas. I think Sark's got that thing going in the right direction. I think Texas is going to be back. I mean, they got still a tough schedule in the Big 12, but every opportunity to beat Alabama in week 2, I should say. So I like Sark. I hope he gets things turned around there. CBus, what do you got?
Yeah, I mean, just what a beautiful thing. It's September. College football's back. I thought opening week was phenomenal over the Labor Day weekend holiday. We saw some really great games. What a thriller in LSU and Florida State coming down to the absolute last second there, all the way to end on a missed extra point was great drama in theater. But no, all in all, I think it's great to see these kids popping pads. Again, I thought it was the one thing I called out, same thing that Coach DerCola said, right? I think seeing these smaller schools in this non-conference format find a way to jump up and bite some of these high-profile teams is great. And, like nothing, I can always count on Jimbo Fisher and Texas A&M to be overrated. They just lost 3 weeks early. They lost 3 weeks earlier than I thought they were going to lose, but at least they exposed themselves for frauds early. Take us all off. Take them all of us off the board.
Well, and I thought what was interesting is when you put Fisher's resume next to Kevin Sumlin, it's almost about the same. They got Kevin Sumlin fired from A&M. And now Jimbo Fisher comes out and says they got to rethink everything at the program, and he may give up play calling duties. So he's got a big game this week against Miami, which we'll pick later on in the show, but that's not going to be an easy one for them either. So, Medicis, what do you got?
I just think it's the beauty of college football right now. You had week 1, they just talked about expansion of college football playoff, and Georgia comes out and just hammers a very overrated Oregon team. And everybody says, oh, the college football, you can't expand. This is what you're going to get. Then turn around week 2, and you have all these upsets of all these higher ranked teams. So I think it's just the beauty of college football that it's truly a sport where on any given day, I mean, the Appalachian State can get you. Appalachian State has almost got 2 wins over, Power 5 conference teams. So I just think it's the beauty of college football, the return, and it's going to be a fun college football season.
Yeah, absolutely, for sure. So, Medicis, I want to stay with you, man. I want you to give me the Syracuse take, man. Give me the thoughts on the Cuse through 2 weeks.
Well,
let's hold on. Let me interrupt you. Medicis or CBus, he picked Syracuse on the predictions to go 9-3.
Oh,
9-3.
What happened? Well, did you talk to him on a Friday night after he had a couple pops? Is that when you got his 9-3 prediction out of him?
Well,
9-3.
Originally I said 8-4, and then as we were going, I'm like, you know what? No, 9-3. And you know what? So far, so good. I mean, everybody talked about for the past couple of years, Syracuse does not win those 50-50 games. Those North Carolina, Duke, Virginia, Wake Forest, Louisville, BC, Pitt. These are games that every year they go in as, 7-point underdogs, 7-point favorites. They're toss-up games. And to come out in week 1 and just dominate arguably the most elusive quarterback in the country, at least in the ACC, and just put on a dominant performance while losing a starting linebacker, just was a great sight to see. And it's been something that has been brewing for a while. I mean, they were super young last year. You don't learn much from last week, though. You play a UConn team that's struggling. But what you do find out is, and again, we talked about this last year. Everybody knows about Tucker. Tucker's a very good running back, but it's the development of the quarterback. Schrader was the number 1 ranked Power 5 quarterback by Pro Football Focus this past week. There's only one quarterback rated higher than him so far, and it's the QB from James Madison. So he's putting up great numbers. I mean, he's efficient. He's running when he has to, but he's actually completing passes. I mean, last year he couldn't hit a crossing route. He couldn't hit anything. I mean, it was bad. I would have brought back old number 10 from RFA and let him get downhill instead of bringing him out. But no, he's looked good. The development has been huge, and I think bringing in the new coaches from Virginia and that new philosophy has really helped. And I mean, last week he completed to 10 different receivers, and one of them being a Michigan transfer that went to Michigan to be a quarterback. And Syracuse is developing him into a wide receiver now. So it just goes to show that there has been progress made, whether that's Dino or the coaching staff, who knows? But right now we're heading the right direction with a big game this week against Purdue.
Jake, do you know what he said last week on the show? He said that Cade McNamara, if he transferred this day to Syracuse, he's the 3rd string quarterback at Syracuse. I said, will you stop? And then he said, well, we'll evaluate Michigan this week and compare because Michigan will play Connecticut, that Syracuse already beat Connecticut. So I said, hold on. Now you're going to think Syracuse is in the same league as Michigan? Give me a break.
Well, I'm still waiting to see. He was big on DeVito. DeVito's going to turn around, and DeVito fell flat on his face. So it's still early. I mean, I'll give him the quarterback has turned around from last year. But the thing I've seen with Syracuse is watch them. They just, to be honest, they look fast on TV. Last year they didn't look. I know they played UConn, but they look pretty fast flying around the ball, especially when they're playing Louisville, which you didn't see that last year.
No, I said to Nick, I was more impressed defensively with, and I think I said this a couple times, but that 24/7 Sports ranked Syracuse's linebacking core as top 5 in the nation. So when you look at that back half of the defense, they're much quicker than they were the last 2 to 3 years, and it's the first time ever I think I've actually seen speed on the back end. So we'll see. We'll see what happens.
Well,
I have them
and
5-7. So
Rock, you got to remember that linebacking core is super young. I mean, they've all been playing as freshmen and sophomores, so they're not only going to be a good defense this year, but all those guys should return next year, and they could be even better next year.
Now they'll transfer to Alabama, transfer portal.
I would not be surprised.
Medicis' dreams already.
I know.
Well, they got a tough. I mean, we talked about it. They got their first 5 games. If they can start off 4-1 or 5-0, then they get into that tough part of the schedule where they get Clemson, they get Notre Dame, they get Wake, they get NC State, and then I think they finished the last game of the year against Boston College,
Pitt
and they got Pitt too. So it's right there in front of them. It would be big if they can get to a bowl game. That's for sure.
Yeah. Well, we'll get into Notre Dame later on.
Jay, keep it in the ACC. How about your Clemson through the first 2 weeks?
Yeah, I mean, it was a good win against Georgia Tech, basically a home game for them. Get to play on prime time. What impresses me is they're up 4 guys. They're big, they're fast, and it reminds me of that. I'm not saying this national championship run, but they have those type of players that they had when they beat Alabama the first time. DJ looks a lot better. He dropped 30 pounds, which helps a lot with him running around. And he's actually running the ball a little bit more this year, which I think is helping him. And, as us coaches know, what's the best thing? It's competition. I think having a young kid behind him, the Cade kid that can sling the ball around, is making him he's got to be on point. In the last 2 games, he's been all right. I mean, not all right. He's been pretty good. But I can tell that kid's nipping on his heels, and I can see that kid eventually taking over if DJ struggles. But they got another soft game coming up, and then they get into the ACC. But I think those will be good tests for them to warm up and get going, especially with 2 new coordinators, with Venables leaving and Tony going up to Virginia. So I think that those are good tests for them to get ready for the ACC run.
And I'll say this: if I'm Dabo Swinney, call Scott Frost to come over as an offensive quality, whatever you want to call the position. Get Scott Frost there, because if he doesn't go over there with them, I think he ends up with Nick Saban at Alabama doing something with that offense. So
I mean, it's still the new coordinator. He has a little bit different mindset and kind of more drop back, where the other one, Tony, was more like you could definitely tell the difference. And I wonder how much, Dabo is going to take and kind of go back to the old style a little bit. So, I mean, I would love to have Scott Frost over that offensive mind.
Yep, I think it's a good possibility, but we'll wait and see. But I'll tell you what, as long as they have that defense is going to keep them in a lot. It looks like the old Clemson defense of old, and that defense will keep them in a lot of games. So we'll see what happens. CBus, your Buckeyes through 2 games. What do you think?
Yeah, so far so good. Early results are positive, right? I think my big question mark coming into the season was what was Jim Knowles going to do with that defense, right? I was looking for a little show prep this morning here, and it said last year at this time Ohio State had given up 456 yards on average on defense and 33 points through the first 2 games of the season. This year they've given up 264 yards and 11 points they're averaging giving up, right? And let's not kid ourselves. They played Notre Dame, who had a woeful offense, and in turn Arkansas State. But you can definitely see they're playing faster on defense. Knowles has definitely simplified that defense and really just allowing them to run around and play football, right? Just hat to hat, go find ball, be ball. Michael Hall Jr. at defensive tackle. If you watched any of that Notre Dame game, I promise you'll see him the rest of the year, barring he stays healthy. Might be the best D tackle we've seen, come out at Ohio State, maybe since Cam Hayward. Looks that dominant and that fast coming in there. Offensively, I think it's been a little bit of a slow ho-hum start. Obviously they lost Smith and Jigba early on there in the Notre Dame game, and then they've also been down their number 2 receiver in Julian Fleming the first 2 weeks as well. But like Ohio State's kind of used to, they plug and play, right? Marvin Harrison Jr. has done his part and looked the part, and then Emeka Buka, from a speed wise and just that's kind of slot receiver has looked phenomenal. So all in all, I think early on has been really good. I'd like to see the running game stiffen up a little bit. They were able to ground the ball out against Notre Dame, but I think Notre Dame was really gassed. But I'd like to see a little bit more dominant run game from that O-line. But they do have a new O-line coach in Justin Fry coming from UCLA. So they got some things to kind of work out there. And then, Rock, my major concern with Ohio State, and I'll pick on them all the time, is penalties. They're 117th in the country in penalties, and they got to get that cleaned up. It's not going to matter against Arkansas State. Hopefully it's not going to matter against Toledo. But it will matter down the road if you don't start to clean up some of those things. And it's week 2, right? So they have time. But definitely, probably my biggest irk with them has been the sloppiness from the penalty side of things.
I keep hearing that Brian Hartline might get a look at Nebraska. They're saying that he may get a look at a lot of jobs that might open up. Solid recruiter. So just a name to be on the lookout for with some of these openings that we'll see throughout the season. So
for sure,
I just want to know how many times is Medicis throughout college football season going to say he's not sold on Ryan Day being an elite coach. That's what waiting. I'm waiting for, man. He's still waiting. Pitching.
Medicis has got it. He's got to win a ring before Medicis is crowning any coach. I get it.
He's got to win a big game. That's all. Not asking a lot.
Well, I think this is the year.
He did win the Rose Bowl, and he did go to the he did go to the college football playoff championship. I don't know what big game you want him to.
I want a bigger game. I want an.
Oh, okay. So again, got to win the national title, not just the big game. Got to win the game. Okay.
If you're in Ohio State, I mean, you expect to be in a national title game and to win the game. I mean, that's the expectations at Ohio State.
It is, but it doesn't mean you're not an elite coach.
He's got elite talent, and it's a lot of it was from the previous coaching staff. I mean, now it's a couple years in, and he's got his own guys in, but win with those guys.
So let's just talk about that other team.
He recruited those guys.
Even as offensive
coordinator,
it's going to be fun to see.
He recruited 85%. He recruited 85% of that offense when he took over the team. So those were his kids, just because Meyer was wearing the hat.
Medicis got me fired up when he said Michigan had a 3rd or 4th string quarterback that comes to Syracuse, and they got moved the wide receiver. If that tells you anything about Michigan, but
has Michigan even played a game yet, or are they still 0-0? Is what they've done? Does that count?
Listen, I'm
beating up on the Rainbow Warriors, and
I will say
else out there.
It's worked out well, and their schedule favors them the rest of the way because all their big games outside of Ohio State, Nick, are in Ann Arbor. Mm-hmm. They'll get Michigan State home. They get Penn State home. Now they've played going to be 3 JV teams. Hawaii is just awful. And I said Sunday on the radio, Timmy Chang, one of my all-time favorite college quarterbacks, is now the head coach at Hawaii. So they're terrible. There's no doubt. I really think what really pained Jim Harbaugh, and again, this is the first time we'll say now he's got his quarterback, we think for the next couple of years at least with McCarthy. But I think it really pained him because I think he played it perfect. Because Cade McNamara from last year wins you a Big Ten title, beats Ohio State, takes him to the playoff, and you got the 5-star athlete behind him who I think should have started last year. He didn't do anything throughout preseason camp to lose the job. So what's Harbaugh do? He says, I'm going to name him the starter against Colorado State, and I'm going to let McCarthy play against Hawaii. We all know, because we follow football, Hawaii stunk. I think, Jake, maybe you and I could have played quarterback and threw a couple balls for scores.
You got recruited there, you said.
I did. My mom threw the letters out. I could have been playing for Hawaii. Who did we say was the coach, Medicis? Was it June Jones when we looked it up in 99?
Yeah, it was June Jones.
It was. I couldn't remember if he was still there, but they had the green helmet with the rainbow on the side. So it played out well because no matter who he would have started was going to light up Hawaii, right? It played out perfect. But I think what really pained Jim is I think part of Cade McNamara reminded himself of him. So now the question becomes, if you don't play J.J. McCarthy, do you take that risk that he's going to transfer being a 5-star recruit? It looked like the entire team was behind him. The stadium's behind him. And again, CBus, he played 2 JV teams. So no matter who you put in there, I was for J.J. because I said he's the better athlete. He gives you a better threat with the run game at quarterback. When Cade's in there, you really don't have to pay too much attention to him running the ball. So I think it played out the way it should. But again, when you play Hawaii, Colorado State, you'll beat up a Connecticut team this week. He's going to light the score. I think they're a 52-point favorite against Connecticut. My only hope is they beat UConn worse than Syracuse did, because Medicis on Sunday is going to say Syracuse is better than Michigan, and we're going to have to debate that on Sunday morning.
But Rock, like I agree with you. He has the luxury of playing 3 exhibition games to tune up for the season. But isn't the argument, if McCarthy's the best player for the team to win, isn't that the guy that should have been starting?
Yes,
week
100%.
One?
Yes.
I mean, I mean, if I'm in that locker room, and we know the players know before any of us know. They know who the most talented quarterback is in that room. Don't you owe it to the team to play the guy that's the best player
Can I
to
jump
give
in
yourself
on
the
this
best chance to win?
Absolutely, 100% agree with that.
I think you go back off last year, and McCarthy is the much better talented and has the higher potential, but I think he wasn't ready to start and play last year, and that was kind of evident. The Michigan State game, the mistake that cost them the game. And McCarthy Cade McNamara got you as far as he could. But if Michigan's goal now is to beat Ohio State and compete with the Georgias, the Clemsons, the Alabamas, you have to take the guy that gives you the best chance to beat the best teams. And the fact that he can get out of the pocket, he can change the game, he can throw the ball, he's the obvious choice if that's where you're at. And right now, I think after last year's season, I think Michigan thinks that's where they're at. Whether they are or not, and I know Nick's laughing because they've won one time in the last 40,000 years. So now all of a sudden,
is all puffed out already. They win one game and they're ready to take on the world. I love it.
But if that's the goal of Michigan, and they think they're back at that, and then you absolutely start him, and you live with the mistakes and the fact that your schedule is so set up for you to get those mistakes out early. I think it's the smart move right now by Harbaugh.
Jake, so I mean, you're a coach. You're Jim Harbaugh. Did he handle it the right way, or would you have went with McCarthy to start the year, and it's his job to lose?
I mean, the whole thing is with college football now is that whole transfer portal, and I kind of think he played it right. He gave Cade the chance to go first, and he had an okay game, but it wasn't spectacular, and they really didn't play anyone. And he gave McCarthy, and he lit it up. I think he had 1 incomplete pass, 3 touchdowns, no sacks, and you could see the difference. When he's on, McCarthy's on, that's the guy they need right there. And I think he had to give him opportunities because of what he did the year before and kept leading him that far. I think he had the right that's his spot, and McCarthy's got to take away. So I'm going to give him the second game and see how he does. If he came out there and was through 50% this, then it'd be all right. More question. All right, we'll go with the guarantee. But you can see this young guy is developed. I think he's ready, and you got to go with him.
Well, and I think
Rock, hold on. If McCarthy couldn't have beat him out in practice in fall camp, that you had to decide between week 1 and week 2, then I got more.
The same way when Clemson had Trevor Lawrence and they had that Kelly. They would give Kelly the shot, and then eventually.
But that's what I'm saying though. If you would have, I have more concerns about McCarthy if he couldn't beat him out in camp to earn that spot week 1 than to tell me that you got to go through this charade of we'll play McNamara the week 1 and we'll play this guy week 2. McNamara wasn't transferring anywhere. He's a Michigan kid. He's staying there. He's already committed to the program. McCarthy had to play anyways. McCarthy's been the best guy there. I agree with you, Rock. I think he was the best guy last year. Yeah. I think the reason McNamara played, I think Medicis was right. I think Cade Harbaugh had to win last year or he was out. And so I think the reason McNamara played was he wasn't going to hitch his wagons to a freshman quarterback last year and potentially open himself up for a 7-5 season or something like that and get him run out of Dodge.
I just think that when you watch JJ play, and Jake, I'm sure you would echo this as a coach, is when you have a quarterback, when they run that power run game out of the spread, and you have to worry about the quarterback running it. I mean, Michigan returns one of the best offensive lines in the country with a couple good backs, so they're going to rely on that run game. Now you throw in the quarterback that can actually run the ball. Now you got to worry, is he going to pull it? Is he going to keep it? So I think with him in there, he gives them the best chance offensively. And, I mean, listen, they return a lot of guys. A lot of skilled guys are back for them. The question I have for them is going to be, again, like Clemson, they lose both coordinators, right? Gaddis is gone. Mike McDonald's gone. They bring in a guy on defense who's in that Ravens system that Mike McDonald play. No Hutchinson, no Ajabo on the outsides, those two defensive ends that caused all that havoc last year. The one thing I'll say, regardless of who they've played, they look fast. And it's something that you over the years, and CBus, I say this all the time on the radio, every year for the last 10 years, when I watch Ohio State play, they have wide receivers that are just running wide open. And it's like, what are these teams doing? And I really think that, not saying that Michigan has closed the gap, because I'm with you. They've beaten them once, right? My wife's like, well, you guys beat us. I'm like, listen, let me enjoy it, because I still got half a year left before they play again. But one of the things I could say is it looks like some of the speed is something that I think they've been missing for a long time. We'll see. If JJ goes down, it's nice to say you got a guy with Cade that's played in the big game. They can come in and probably manage the game. Could he win the big game again? I don't know, but we'll see. I think they made the right choice. I don't think he handled it the right way, though, Nick. I'm with you.
Yeah.
Man, my brother-in-law and Pete's on here. They're all blowing this thing up. Cody's on here. It's great. So you guys, we'll get off the Michigan topic, but the schedule: UConn, Maryland, at Iowa, who can't score at all. I'm waiting for Kirk Ferentz to demote his son from play calling duties. At Indiana, and then Penn State, Michigan State, Nebraska. So the schedule. I won't get ahead of myself. CBus,
it's as soft as Charmin. You're going to be undefeated. You'll be undefeated going into the. You're going to be undefeated going into the last week of the season.
I said to Medicis when we did our picks, I got Michigan, Ohio State 11-0 playing each other at the end of the year, and they're both going to be, if they're not 1-2, 2-3, 3-4. That's how I got. I don't think anybody beats either one of them till the end of the year, but we'll see. Crazier things happen. Marcus Freeman can't win a football game. 0-3, the first 42 consecutive wins against unranked opponents. He starts off 0-3. They're 0-2 this year. They got beat to Marshall. I thought they played the Buckeyes well. I thought defensively they played well. They just don't have an offense. But what's going on up there, Jake, with Marcus Freeman? Notre Dame fans, are they panicking, wishing they had that Brian Kelly back?
You would. I mean, here's another thing: is did Brian Kelly see that cupboard might be a little bit bare, and that's why he kind of jumped ship? Maybe he saw something that the rest of us really didn't see, and it's hard for a new coach to come in on a situation like that. And I think once he gets kind of his style and get the Brian Kelly out, I think things are going to turn. I know they had the off season, but still, that you're going into the bowl game, first game, here you go. And that's very hard for an intern coach that probably wasn't even ready, even thinking about it, because Brian Kelly's name wasn't out there for those jobs, to turn around. Okay, let's go. Then he gets the job, and it's almost like right now, everything's probably moving so fast for him right now. And I think once he gets settles down, gets, just relax a little bit, I could see those guys go turning it around that season. But I just think right now it's just things are going flying by way too fast for him, and he probably is missing the little stuff, the stuff that will help him win games more.
So, go ahead.
No, Coach, I agree for sure, right? I think we all need to pump the brakes a little bit. I understand the Golden Domers are a little bit freaking out, but he's got. I think he only has 2 coaches on his staff that are over the age of 40, right? Like, they're a very young coaching staff. They are going. You can tell they are learning on the fly. They lost Avery Davis, their best wide receiver, to a torn ACL in fall camp. Now they lose their quarterback, who we can argue wasn't doing great. Tommy Rees looks like he's in a little bit, over his head. And then let's also be honest, outside of the Marshall loss, which was inexcusable, they also lost a bowl game where he was shotgun coaching that game on a whim after Kelly left them at the altar. And then he has to go to the shoe on Saturday night, kick off the season, with everybody and their mother waiting to watch that football game, on top of the fact that he's going back to his alma mater and to play that game as well, right? I think, to me, the bigger shock that I saw with them has really been the defensive effort that I saw on Saturday. Really looked like a complete letdown from what I saw the week before against Ohio State. And in fact, it raised eyebrows to me of, man, maybe Ohio State's offense really is struggling early, because Notre Dame's defense looked porous. on Saturday. But the only thing I'll add, and then I'll kick it to Medicis, is, Notre Dame had the 6th ranked recruiting class in 22. And depending on the publication you look at right now, they're either 1 to 4 in recruiting class in 23. That's going to take care of itself. Notre Dame was in the position similar to where Michigan was, right? They had to decide, are we national championship contending, program, or are we going to be happy with being 9-2, 10-1, going to a decent bowl game and claiming a top 10, top 15 spot in the rankings when the season over? I think they pushed their chips in that they wanted to be a national title program. If that's the case, let this kid get his class in, let him bring in his recruits, let him tweak, let him learn a little bit how he wants to adjust and call games. He's going to be fine. Everybody in South Bend, take a deep breath.
Yeah, I was going to say I agree, but here's the problem I always struggle with any of these big colleges. How can these big colleges not be able to recruit a quarterback? Like, Marcus Freeman is going to win games there. I just hope Notre Dame people are going to be patient with him because they're not patient with anybody. I mean, I'm with you guys is that he got thrown into a bowl game to coach that they lost. They had a lead, they lost. Then he has to go back to his alma mater and play Ohio State in the national spotlight on a night game, which I don't care who you are. That's a brutal game for anybody. The Marshall loss is inexcusable. They shouldn't lose to Marshall. Texas A&M should never lose to App State. Michigan should have never lost to App State. I don't care what Power 5 program you are. You don't deserve losing to an FCS school or a bottom tier Power 5 school. It shouldn't happen. But my biggest question and concern is, how do you not recruit a quarterback to go to Notre Dame? Like, he's got good recruiting classes coming in. There's no doubt about, I think he will have success. But the question is this year, guys, Cal's not bad. Cal's undefeated. North Carolina is going to score a lot of points. BYU looks like if they can win out, tough schedule, they might get in the playoff. He's still got to play USC, still got to play Clemson, and he's still got to play the Orange of Syracuse. So he potentially can lose 3 or 4 more games this year.
Easy. Yeah, I agree.
So you like how I threw in the orange on that, Medicis?
Yeah, I was just saying. You said they could lose 3 or 4. You named like 5 teams so that you made sure to get the point across that 3 or 4 is not Syracuse. It's the 3 or 4 I listed before. But I do appreciate the shout out. We're getting there.
Listen, I might have to redo my predictions because I picked Houston to go 5-7. They may be 5-0 the first 5 games of the season.
Hey, people don't listen.
We'll see what happens. All right, Nebraska makes the big coaching move. I think everybody expected it when Nebraska got beat. But do you guys think it was the right move? You think they should have let Scott Frost finish the season out, especially with these kids already, that decided to stay, who transferred? Jake, you think they should have waited and let him coach it out?
After I said that on the show, I thought they were. I got to kind of thinking, and they almost had to fire him because if, let's say, he turned the table, beat Oklahoma, got a couple more wins, and it's like, oh, we're back with him instead of just let's pull the Band-Aid. We're gonna have to reset the button and see if we can find a better guy, because if they allow him to go on for a regular or for the whole season, he could have had some upset wins. What if he somehow got to the title game and nothing really got fixed, really? So I think they had to definitely pull the Band-Aid.
What do you think, CBus? Think it was the right move?
I mean, I think they should have fired him last year. I think what's ironic is they gave him a $7.5 million contract extension going into the season, and then they turn around and dump him on his head 2 weeks into the season, right? I think the writing's been on the wall. He doesn't, I like some of his offensive, game plan and strategy that I've seen him roll out there, but they're missing so much. His in-game management is not great. Defensively, they've never found, that old school toughness of Nebraska defense that, we grew up watching them play when Tommy Frazier was behind center, and that defense was formidable, right? So I think it was beyond time, and Nebraska's a perplexing one, right? I mean, we brought, they came over to the Big Ten, and I think everybody was really kind of excited and said, okay, Nebraska, here we go. And they've struggled to find their footing since they've walked into the Big Ten, and they're still searching, right? And Frost was a tough to let go. I understand he went there and played there, was a hell of a player, but probably a year and a half too late, to be honest.
Listen, he got $14 million to go away. I think he'll be happy with that.
Oh, it'll be fine.
He was 5-22 in one-score games. So if he wins those games, we're probably having a different type of conversation. But I kind of compare this thing, and I said to Medicis a couple times on a radio show, I thought that when Jim Harbaugh got the job at Michigan, I said perfect hire for Michigan. When Scott Frost got the job at Nebraska, I said perfect hire. He's a Tom Osborne guy. He knows what it's like to win. I think what hurt Nebraska is joining the Big Ten. Yeah. I think that hurt him big time. But when you look at Scott Frost, when you've watched him the last couple of years, he looks stressed at a wall. When every week you're coaching for your job and it doesn't look fun anymore, I'll say this. I think he'll get another job at probably a mid-level school, and I think he'll win games, and I think he'll have more fun than he did at Nebraska. It's a lot of pressure to win at your alma mater and to go back, because if you guys remember, he really thought about whether or not he was going to take this job or not take it. I almost felt like he was pressured and forced into take it, and he thought that he had to take it because he played there. But he did not look like over the last 2 years that he had any fun. And even this year, through the first two games, my God, if you look on him on the sideline, his face, he looks like a guy that's like, oh, my God, I'm coaching for my job. It looked like he didn't have any fun. And, again, when you're not winning, you're not having any fun. But when you're 5-22 in those close games, we could have easily flipped the script, and we could be talking so much different about Nebraska. I'll say this. Don't sleep on Nebraska beating Oklahoma this week.
Oh, geez, Rock.
Nebraska, that might be on my upset alert later when we do predictions coming up. But Nebraska-Oklahoma years ago, guys, was one of the best rivalries in college football in the Big 12. And I think they're going to come ready to play. Not saying that they're going to win the game, but I think if Oklahoma starts slow like they did against Kent State, Nebraska beats them this week if they start slow. So who are some guys, Jake, who are some guys you think that we could see rumored for this job?
The problem is like right now I just don't see as a primary school, like I don't see Campbell leaving Iowa State for it. That would almost go a step down. I think, to be honest, I could see one of those lower schools that they're going to give a guy a shot, like the App State coach, Coach Clark from there that's done a great job that helped build that program. Even Chadwell from Coastal, that I think they're going to have to go after one of those coaches and just hope they pick the right one. Or I can also see the intern there that he's been there forever and give him a shot if he's done a good job this year.
Medicis, you're shaking your head. You don't want to lose to Chanticleer's coach?
No, he's got to stay. He's building something there. Why take a step down? That Nebraska job's not a step up. But
I think it's a big step up.
Well, yeah, being the doormat of the Big Ten is fun. That's good. Coastal was almost if remember, there's a 12-team playoff now. Coastal in the last 2 years has been a top 12 team. So that means in the last 2 years they would have been in the playoff. So are you going to give up a job where you're a perennial, playoff type team, or in the Big Ten? I don't know if you're the 10th best team. So, but I'll tell you what, if you're looking at that Nebraska job, Bill O'Brien is a guy that, his resume and what he did at Penn State when they were in shambles. Hugh Freeze is a guy that, his name gets thrown out every couple of years. What he did at Liberty with Malik Willis and, turning that program around. But I see a lot of Mark Stoops, and I don't see it happening. I don't see him ever leaving Kentucky. Like, why? He is basically untouchable at Kentucky. You don't leave Kentucky right now to become a bottom dweller in the Big Ten.
CBus, who do you think?
So I think, Medicis named 62 coaches, so he took about all of them off my list.
Yeah.
But I do
Coach
have one.
Day. He's stepping that. He's going that direction. Coach Day.
Yeah, right. No, I got one off the radar guy. What about Matt Rule after he gets fired from Carolina mid-season? Big time, great college coach, obviously not a great NFL coach. Likes to turn around programs. Temple, Baylor, seems like a guy that Nebraska could write a blank check to, and maybe get in there and see. And Rock, the only thing I'll pick on in Nebraska is, hey, the Big Ten was so hard. They're in the Big Ten West. That means they had to beat Wisconsin to get to the Big Ten championship to be relevant. Not in the overloaded East where we have Penn State, Michigan State, Ohio State, Michigan. If he couldn't get them competitive on that side of the Big Ten, shoot, he might be coaching the Rainbow Warriors next year.
I think it's a good job. I think it's a good job because of that. You don't have to beat, you don't play Penn State, Michigan State, Ohio. You got to beat Minnesota and PJ Fleck that's doing a good job over there, and you got to beat Wisconsin
and sleepy Iowa.
Yeah. And Iowa. Yep. Well, you guys named just about. I had O'Brien, Stoops. I did have Matt Rule on mine, but I'm going to throw you a couple other names. I had Jim Leonard, the defensive coordinator over at Wisconsin. I think is due to get a look if he doesn't get a coordinator job in the NFL. I had Matt Campbell. I know we've mentioned Matt Campbell for a lot of jobs. I think if Matt Campbell this year at Iowa State, even if he goes 7-5, gets them to a bowl game, I think he would finally jump because I think he's kind of tapped out. I think he's been way over. We've been talking about him now for the last 2 or 3 years. Last year he had a so-so year last year. So I think he would give a look. And the two other names I had Dave Aranda, the current Baylor coach, who I think would be a fantastic fit going over there and bringing that hard-nosed power run game. I don't think
Baylor's going to let him out the door, though.
I don't think so either.
They've been burned too much with coaches leaving them with Browse and Rule. I think they'll open the checkbook up for him.
You guys said Bill O'Brien and Stoops, but I'll give you 2 wild cards. Urban Meyer, number 1, Luke Fickell, number 2. I don't think Fickell goes because of Cincinnati going to the Big 12, but don't sleep on Urban Meyer going to Nebraska, or at least getting a call from Trev Alberts. So
no, it's not going.
Guys, I know it's real early in the season, but I want to hear who you guys have right now for your early playoff predictions. And later when we do the show down the road here, maybe November, December, we'll tweak this. But I want to know who you guys have early on here in the season in your Final Four. So I want to start with Jake. Jake, who do you have in your semifinals?
The way Georgia looks, got to put Georgia in there. They lost a lot, but they gained it back. Alabama, just with Bryce and the Heisman Trophy winner back there. And then the thing is Ohio State and Michigan, I think they're going to knock each other out. And so I would say right now, the way Michigan looks, I know they play against JV. I'm going Michigan and then Clemson. So even though Georgia and Alabama play in the title game, I could see them, long if it's close, just like last year, letting them both in.
All right. CBus, what do you got?
So I got Bama. I think Ohio State has enough to get there. I also like Georgia. I think Jake's right. I think they'll probably beat each other up in the championship game, and I think loser probably still subs in a number 4. The only caveat I would put at that, Rock, is if Ohio State and Michigan are truly undefeated, when they play, if they play a close game, depending on what both schools look like throughout the season, they got a possibility of pulling that off. But I'm going to go my 4th team. I'm going to go USC. I think take that, Medicis. So I'm gonna go USC. I think Caleb Williams, obviously coming over there. Pac-12 only has a couple years left before they disintegrate into nothingness as it currently stands. I don't think they have a ton in their way. Lincoln Riley's going to run his high-flying offense. They got some energy back in that program. We know he's going to recruit. So it certainly feels like that can be the story this year. They got to get past Utah, which I think Utah showed their muscle against Florida. Lost a tough, close game. But yeah, I'm going to go at least early season, week 2. I'm going to tell you Bama, Ohio State, Georgia, USC as I currently stand.
If USC can play some defense, they got a legit shot because that offense is electrifying, man, for the first couple of weeks.
That's tough.
Medicis, I'm guessing you had USC in there. So give me your 4.
I had Georgia, the winner of the Ohio State-Michigan game, Alabama, and then USC is my number 4. I just think, jumping off what Nick said, I mean, you look at that schedule, it's not only, the offense and if the defense comes around, but, I mean, they're sitting at number 7 in the country, playing one ranked team the rest of the way in a week, Pac-12. I mean, I just see it's like the perfect storybook for Lincoln Riley he's coming into LA and he's taking everybody and he's going right to the playoffs in year 1. And, I can only imagine the recruits that he's going to steal and the transfer portal that's going to be, guys heading out to USC. So I just think right now it's all set up for USC to get into that playoff.
Well, I do like that pick. I think it's going to set up too, though, for a BYU team. If BYU can run the table, which is asking a lot, they still got to go play Oregon this week. They got a really tough schedule left. I think a one-loss Utah, if they run the table, I think is still in the conversation. I think a one-loss Baylor, if they run the table in the Big 12, is still in that conversation. I got Alabama and Georgia. I think they're the two obvious ones, but I'll tell you what. Alabama looked vulnerable. I know Texas was a 20-point dog on a huge stage. I think Texas easily should have won that game. I think Alabama looked vulnerable, but I think in the end they'll be there. I got Ohio State, but I had to take the high road on this because CBus, I think the Buckeyes in Michigan, and if anybody's going to slip up, I'm sure it'll be Michigan, and then I'll never hear the end of it from my wife. But I think they both play each other in a close game. And I think the voters will look and see is a one-loss Ohio State or a one-loss Michigan better than a one-loss Baylor or a one-loss Utah. I got Ohio State and Michigan right now because I couldn't pick between the two of them. I got them both in, and I'm telling you, it reminds me of the year, Nick, when I was in Columbus.
42-39.
It was 42-39. Yep.
Yeah.
And I thought they both belonged in the playoff that year. I thought they were the two best teams in the country that year, hands down. So I got Bama, Georgia, Ohio State, and Michigan right now in the playoffs. So I do like USC, but there's so many good scenarios I think that'll play out. How about if an undefeated BYU gets through with the teams they would have had to beat?
Yeah,
could it happen? I mean,
it could, but you lost me when you said a tough Oregon team because I'm not so sure how tough Oregon is this week for BYU. No, I'm joking. No, BYU looks formidable. I think they got a chance. I just think that it's really tough to put a team like that in there. Cincinnati proved it can be done, but boy, a lot of things got to break your way, for that to happen. I just don't know if I can envision that happening 2 years in a row where everybody trips over themselves and somebody like a BYU can kind of sneak in there at 4. But stranger things have happened. It's college football.
So you have 2 SEC and 2 Big Ten teams and
do.
nobody else? Interesting.
Yep. But hey, that's why it's the
week 2.
Early predictions. I'm sure we'll change them throughout.
I mean,
the
you
season.
Medicis, you didn't even pick between the two. You said Ohio State or the winner of Ohio State, Michigan. You couldn't even put yourself out there to pick one. So I don't know if you can pick on the guy who picked 2 from the same conference. You couldn't even pick one.
Well, if you listen,
I'm coming out firing, baby. Let's go. College football. Let's go.
That's right.
If you listen to the radio show, you heard my prediction where Michigan will beat Ohio State for the 2nd straight year.
Oh, that's why you didn't want to say that, because
no.
you didn't want me to cut you down to size. That's all that was.
I was being politically correct, my friend in Columbus. I didn't want to.
Medicis, if that happens, my wife, who always says she wants to divorce
room
me,
in the house. It's fine.
She will probably throw me out of the house.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I got a basement here. We'll take care of you.
Last year, I had to drive from Raleigh, North Carolina, home with her on a Saturday, and I think I told you guys the story. It was the first Michigan-Ohio State game I didn't watch in probably 20 years, and the best part about it was throughout the game, when the game was over, she didn't talk to me for 2.5 hours while the game was going on. We get to a rest stop, and she goes, "Well, it's about time. You guys had to win one of them. You guys haven't won in the last how many years?" I'm like, let me enjoy it. Let me enjoy it for a little while. It doesn't happen often. But anyway.
Well, here's the question. Are you going to do the same this year? Not watch it and just listen to it on the radio?
Well, I'll tell you what. We normally go to North Carolina for Thanksgiving to visit her sister, and it's always around that time. So I don't know. I got to talk to her and see what's going on. But I might be superstitious, and I might do it again and listen to it on the radio. But I think I had to listen to – it was on Sirius, and I'm trying to think who it was. I think it was Dan Deerdorf or one of those guys that was calling it. It was a former Michigan guy. So I was listening to two Michigan guys call the game, so it wasn't too bad. So we'll see. But I might have to do it again on the radio. So, and I didn't wear my Michigan jersey. First time in 20 years I didn't wear a Michigan jersey. So I might have to do that again too. So we'll see. You guys ready to pick some games?
Let's do it.
Yeah.
Oklahoma, Nebraska. I think it's at Nebraska. I didn't see if it's on a neutral field, but I think it's at Nebraska. So
At Nebraska.
let's start with that one. Jake, I'll start with you. Who you got?
Oh, I like Venables, Clemson guy, but I just think I was gonna go possibly Nebraska. I think it's gonna be close, but my gut's I gotta go with Oklahoma. I think that defense will prevail at the end, but it's gonna be a close one just because of just that new coach, new something, that atmosphere of them changing and against the world, coming out and shocking the world with a new coach and everything. So, but I'm going to go with Oklahoma in a close one.
CBus, who you got?
They can play this game on the moon. Oklahoma's going to win. I think Nebraska will be a spirited squad for maybe the first quarter and a half. No depth. Defense is terrible. Oklahoma will win big, 17, 20 points.
Okay. Medicis, how about you?
Yeah, I agree with Nick from CBus. I think halftime it'll be a 7-10 point game, and Nebraska's kind of hanging on by a thread, and Oklahoma comes out and just opens things up, and they win easily.
Easily. So I'm going to take Nebraska with the points. They're getting 11, so I'm going to take Nebraska. I think it's closer. For some reason, I just think Nebraska is going to play hard. You hate to say all they needed was a change and have it be a coaching change, but I think they're going to come out ready to play. And I think if Oklahoma comes out and struggles early, I can see Nebraska in the fourth quarter keeping this thing close. But I'm going to take Oklahoma, but I think it's closer than 11 points on Saturday. So we'll see how it plays out. Medicis, I'll start with you. BYU at Oregon.
We talked about BYU and them. I mean, I don't think they're anywhere close to sneaking into the playoffs right now, but I do think they're much better than Oregon, at least the Oregon team that we saw week 1. I mean, week 2, that was a scrimmage, so I don't even count that. So I think BYU wins by double digits, and I still think there's a lot for Oregon to prove right now. We don't know enough about them.
CBus, what you got?
Yeah, that's a coin flip game for me. I don't trust Oregon. I do not think that Oregon. They showed me that, man, it's one of the worst tackling displays I ever saw in week 1 against Georgia. So for that reason, and me seeing BYU play tough physical football, I just don't think Oregon. I don't think Oregon can match up. So give me BYU by 4. Close game.
Jake, how about you?
I'm going to go with Oregon. I think Bo Nix has those up and down games. It's going to be one of those games he's going to play lights out, like how he did at Auburn for all those years. So Oregon at home I'm going with.
Well, I mean, listen, Oregon, it was Dan Lanning, who was the defensive coordinator for Kirby Smart at Georgia, is now the head coach at Oregon. They opened up against probably the best team in the country. And I was listening on the way home today from Kingston. I was listening to Coach Neuheisel on Sirius, and I think he was talking to a Pac-12 guy who covers the Pac-12 and said that first game against Georgia, Oregon missed over 40 tackles, 40 missed tackles in that first game. I can't see that happening this week at home. I want BYU to beat them because I want to see BYU run the table and see everybody debate whether or not BYU belongs in. So I'm going to say I like BYU to go down there and beat them. BYU played without their 2 best wide receivers against Baylor, and I think beat a really good Baylor team. So I think they go down, and I think they beat Oregon. The line's only 3.5. I like them to cover that spread too. So I'm going to go with BYU. Nick, I know Cody's going to be pissed at us because he's the Oregon guy, but yeah, I think they get beat again.
Yeah, I agree.
So let's go reverse order. Jake, I'll start with you on this one. Liberty against Wake Forest.
I'm going Wake Forest with their quarterback back, Hartman, I believe is the name. What a big difference that makes for them. I know they beat up on a Vandy team, but still, he makes that offense run smooth. and I'm going Wake Forest by 2 touchdowns.
CBus, how about you?
Yeah, I like Wake. I like their quarterback. I like the way that the offense has been flowing. I'm gonna take them big too, double digits.
Oh, sorry guys. I'm looking at the spreads and I got music playing in the background here. Medicis, how about you? Who you got?
When we did our picks on the radio, it was right after the news of Sam Hartman being out. And we did not know how long he was going to be out. The fact that he was back last week. I mean, what a difference he makes for that team. I think Wake Forest wins, and I think Wake Forest wins big today or on Saturday. I think him taking control of that offense, because Wake Forest runs that different kind of offense, that read option where he's holding the ball longer than any other team in the country, and I think he's just so good at it. That's a tough team to stop, so I got Wake winning, and Malik Willis is not at Liberty anymore, and it's going to show.
And I'm sure, Medicis, you saw the nice gesture by Coach Clausen.
Classy, very classy.
Yeah, it was nice. I'm more happy for Sam Hartman because they still haven't released what the procedure he had done. It was a medical procedure.
Right.
But there was a kid that decided to come back again, and I didn't want to see him miss 6 or 7 games. But I think when we did our predictions on the radio, I don't think we had him back until like week 7 or 8.
Yeah, we were thinking end of the season, right before the Syracuse game.
So I think this is a huge get for them, and I think they win big.
Yep.
I was just looking at the line; it's 16.5. It's at Wake. I think they do win by that 16.5. So I'm going to go ahead and take Wake. But good to have him back. He's one of the good stories in college football for sure.
No doubt.
And then CBus, I'll start with you on this one. Texas Tech, who's actually 2-0, they'll play at NC State, who all this hype on NC State to start the year, people have them predicting to win the ACC. You think Texas Tech goes in there and's got a shot against the Wolfpack?
Oh, I think they got a shot. I think Texas Tech, offensively has been, has surprised me, at least from what I've seen early on this year. I just, from what I know about NC State, I'm gonna go. As you said, it's in NC State, correct?
Yes.
Yeah. Give me NC State by 5. But I think close. I think maybe late score. 5-6 minutes to go in the fourth quarter to kind of pull away for NC State.
Jake, who you got?
I'm going NC State. I think Texas Tech, coming off that huge big win against Houston with a couple of overtimes, I think it's going to be hard to get back up for that game real quick, going to NC State, so it's a little bit short and weak. And NC State with their quarterback, I forget his name, is pretty accurate and pretty good. So at home, I could see NC State pretty easy.
Did you guys happen to see the new facilities that Texas Tech is going to put in? All
I
I can say is if you haven't seen it, man, wow, what a facility that they're going to put in. It's phenomenal. Medicis, who you got?
I think NC State got their wake-up call week 1 when they played East Carolina to a much, much closer game. I mean, realistically, they probably should have lost the game. And when you're a program that's never been hyped for a top 10 season and predicted to win the conference, having that game early and then still surviving it and winning it is huge moving forward. So I think NC State wins the game, and I think they are right now a team in contention to win that ACC.
It's not.
Yeah, I'm with you guys. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to take NC State. The line's 10.5. I think you're right, but they got that first game. East Carolina is not a bad team to start the season off for them. So, but I'm with you. I like NC State. I think they're going to be right there in the hunt in the ACC. So I like them. I like them to cover the 10.5. Miami, Florida, the U. People are already saying they're back. They go play at Texas A&M. Does anybody need a win more than Jimbo Fisher this week outside of Marcus Freeman? So, Medicis, I'll start with you on this one. Who you got?
As much as I'd like to say the ACC can steal one here, I think Texas A&M needs this win more than any team in the country right now outside of Notre Dame. So I think Jimbo gets it done. I think it's a close game. I think the hype train at Miami slows down a little bit. I do think it's a really close game, but I think Texas A&M does win this game.
Okay. CBus?
Man, I feel like I'm picking the best of the two frauds, right? I mean, we've heard Miami's been back for the last 4 years, and then we think A&M is A&M is always going to be in contention, and then they always stub their toe multiple times along the way to crawl to 8-4, 9-3, right? So I'm going to agree with you guys, though. I think A&M just has more talent. I think that slap in the face last week is enough to make them angry. Angry football team, motivated football team, and more talented than Miami. I'll take A&M.
Jake, how about you?
Reluctantly.
Going with the upset. ACC coming into the SEC country, showing a little bit of dominance. I think I'm going with Miami. I think they're kind of riding high, and they can come out and have a fast start. I could definitely see it go their way. If they come out and trip over their feet and A&M kind of gets some momentum, they could be the other way. But I'd say Miami comes out in a close win.
It's really funny because I'm just looking right here. Miami's ranked 13th, and A&M dropped all the way to 24. A&M's a 6-point favorite at home. So that's kind of an interesting line. I'm not sold on Miami yet. I do think Mario Cristobal is going to win a lot of games. I think he'll turn the U around just because I think he's a really good recruiter. But I think A&M's going to play with a chip on their shoulders. This game, I was looking, is at 9 o'clock on Saturday night. But I'll tell you what, if Texas A&M were to lose this game, the heat's going to be turned up even more on Jimbo Fisher. But I do like A&M this week. I do like them to cover the 6 too. I think they'll play with a chip on their shoulder. So I'm going to go with A&M this week. Jake, I'll start with you. Purdue at Syracuse.
I'm guessing you're saying Medicis for last, huh?
I'm going to save him for last.
The thing is, Purdue always plays well on the road. But Syracuse right now, the way they're going, I think they're running all cylinders right now. And I'm going to go with Syracuse. I think in a close one. And Dino's not going to mess up the end of the game. It will be close, but I'm going to go with Syracuse.
Okay. CBus, who you got?
Boy, I love the way the Syracuse defense is playing. You guys touched on their linebacker core early. Syracuse wide receivers are actually catching passes this year and not dropping them. Tight ends look good at Syracuse lately. So I tend to agree with Purdue. If they do play well on the road. However, defensively, if you can limit their offense, you can typically outlast them. I think Syracuse is more physical. I think a little bit more tough. So I'm gonna take Syracuse.
I probably don't even have to ask you, Medicis, but
I think it's the defense that's the difference. I think the defense is playing well. You got a shutdown corner and Deuce Chestnut, who no one's even looked his way and throw the ball in any way in his direction. And then the balance of the offense. I mean, everybody came in saying, to stop Syracuse, you're going to put 8-9 in the box and shut down Tucker. And, Schrader's connecting on passes, and wide receivers have caught the ball this year. So they're making winning plays. And I think that's the biggest thing is in the past, they've shot themselves in the foot. They fumbled. They turned it over. They dropped a key pass. And this year they're making those winning plays. And I think it continues. I picked Syracuse to start the year 5-0, and I don't see any reason to change that right now.
How big of a win, though?
I don't think. I think they win by 10 points. I think just being at home, I think they kind of wear them down, and I think they make some plays late. I think it's going to be a close game throughout, but I do think that Dino handles the game a lot better, and they win the game.
Boy.
You all right, Rock?
Just to hear you say Dino Babers handles the game better.
Medicis
The last
already
2
talked
years
about
were
extension.
The last 2 years we're saying Dino
2-0.
Babers can't win a game.
Hey, just say this with me. Whose house?
It pains me to say this because when we did our picks, I picked Purdue to win this game.
Yeah.
But I'm going to switch this up. Syracuse has only given Purdue 1.5 at home. I'm gonna pick Syracuse. I think they do get this win, but I think Purdue's going to test them. I do think Purdue is going to come in. Their quarterback O'Connell is a good quarterback. I think Purdue is going to be in that middle of the pack in that other Big Ten. I think it's going to be close, but I can't believe I'm going to switch my pick. I'm going to pick Syracuse to win this week.
Wow, you're bumping them up to a 500 record. This is big for you.
I know it is big. Hey, I'm part of the media. I got to be honest now, right? Let's pick the real game. Albany at Fordham. Fordham is 2-0. They're picked second in the Patriot League. They got one of the best quarterbacks in the entire country in Tim DeMorat. Medicis, who you got?
Well, we already picked Fordham again on the radio, and I think I agreed with you. I think we both had them at 10-2 or 11-1. We both had them winning this game. I think that Holy Cross matchup is just, you just keep staring at that Holy, especially after what they did to Buffalo on that Hail Mary play. I don't see any different. Fordham's been playing well. I got Fordham winning.
CBus, who you got?
Give me the Rams. Let's go. Lay it down.
Jake, how about you?
Well, the way you sound with the quarterback from Fordham being pretty high up, and you think he's going to get drafted even, you got to go with a better quarterback play. So
is he playing baseball? Is that where he's getting drafted?
No.
He's talking about first round.
Whoa.
No, I didn't say first round. I said he would be drafted.
Well,
he'll be drafted.
I'm gonna have to call in if this is the craziness that coach is coming out of his mouth on Sundays. Jeez.
I was gonna go on this one and pick Albany because that's where my nephew is, but there's no chance. It's homecoming for Fordham, so I'm gonna take Fordham by a couple touchdowns or better. The only problem with Fordham is their defense is giving up a ton of points. Their offense is scoring 40, 50 a game. They're loaded on offense with skilled guys. I think it'll be a good matchup because I think Colgate's better too this year. Colgate had a good win over Maine last Saturday. So I think Colgate, Holy Cross, and Fordham are all going to be in the hunt. And I've said it week in and week out so far. The Patriot League, I think, will get 2 teams in the 1AA playoffs this year, which will be the first time, I think, in a long time that they got 2 from the Patriot League. So I'm going to go with Fordham.
Is that kid still there that had all those tackles that one game?
He is. He's back.
He's not making tackles this year?
He is. He was hurt. He got hurt midway through the season last year.
Oh.
So he's back.
Tired.
All right. We're going to pick. Jake, I got 2 high school games on here. CBus, I'm going to throw one in here for you first.
All right.
Westerville from Ohio against Dublin Kaufman High School.
I need to know which Westerville. Is it Central, North, or South?
I think it's Central.
Okay.
So I'm going to start with you.
That is my niece's school. She plays softball there. Shout out Lauren. But they are not very good at football, although they were on the SportsCenter top 10 first week, beating my alma mater on a hook and ladder on the last play of the game, which stung. But no, Dublin Kaufman, tough school. They're good. So we're going to go ahead and take off.
Okay. Jake, how about you?
No clue. I'll just go with what CBus said.
Okay. I think both teams are 2-1 coming into this game.
Correct.
I think. So, Medicis, how about you?
Unless the word is Massillon, I have no idea who you're talking about. So I'm gonna go with the team that CBus's relative goes. Yeah, the one that stinks of football. Upset alert. They're getting the win.
Like it.
I'm going to go Dublin Kaufman just because it's a home game for them. And I was looking at some of the guys on where they're from. They actually not Dublin Kaufman. I'm sorry. I'm going with the other one, Westerville, because Nick, they did do the hook and ladder. They showed it, and I watched a clip on it. So I'm going to go with Westerville on that one.
Against my alma mater, the other Westerville school, which kick.
And then Jake, we're going with you. I don't know if you want to pick it because it's your game, but I know you'll go with yourself. RFA at Henniger, who was my rival when I played. I can't stand Henniger. So, Medicis.
I'm going with the Black Knights.
Wait, they're both the Black Knights.
They're both the Black Knights.
I was going to say, Nick, this is Henniger Black Knights versus Rome Free Academy Black Knights.
Right.
No, I think they've RFA showed glimpses. I think they put it all together. I think they go to Henniger. And they win by 2 touchdowns on the road.
CBus?
All right, so I'm gonna go with Rock. You said you can't stand Henniger.
Can't stand him. Can't stand him.
Me neither. Then let's go RFA.
So Jake, I know where you're going, so we'll leave that.
I thought CBus was going the other way. Just
I did too.
I know well enough, and I don't need Big Jared to give me a call if I upset him. So I'm gonna stick to where I should.
Yeah.
We that was the game when I played, and they got us our junior year at Henniger 14-7 in a mud bowl. And then we beat them in the finals that year, the sectionals. And then we went on to the state championship that year. And then my senior year, we played them on homecoming when they were loaded with skilled guys. Marquise Walker, who played at Michigan, was one of those wideouts. And we were neck and neck. We were down 13-0 at halftime. And I'll tell you this, true story. I'll just give you the short version. It was homecoming, and I forget one of the teachers that came in the gym. And, Jake, I don't know if that's where you guys still go, if you guys use the gym in there. So Coach Hoke used to put the chalkboard up, and it'd be the offense on one side and the defense would go down with Coach Bruce on the other side. And one of the teachers came in and said, Coach, I need Rocky, I need Bevilacqua, I need Aaron Barber, I need Rich Johnson to come out for the court. And I won't tell you what Coach Hoke said because we were losing. We knew that wasn't happening. But I still remember it. We went out and beat them 21-13. But the look on Coach Hoke's face when he thought we were going out for the homecoming stuff was priceless. So I can't stand Henniger. So, Jake, I hope you guys beat him by 3 or more touchdowns. I know a win's a win, but I hope you give it to him.
Yeah, I mean, that's our plan. We got to eliminate their explosive plays. They live explosive plays and the momentum. So if we can cut those down, I like our chances. Now, here's the real question. Did you win on the homecoming court too?
We all got on the court.
So you didn't win King?
We actually voted in. There was a kid, his name was Pete Grieco, who had a disability that we all voted in, and he ended up being the king, and Al Bevilacqua, myself, and a couple other guys were on the court with him. So
now, if he wasn't there, would you have beat the Bevilacqua?
It would have been close.
It gets downhill like old.
It was, yeah, it would have been close, that's for sure. But it was good. It was good. So are we doing parting shots? Because I forgot to put it on my agenda. We got to end with it, right?
I have one.
All right, Jake, you got one?
Yeah, I'm ready to go.
All right. Hopefully you guys don't steal mine. I got to try to wing mine because I was looking at my notes and I don't see it. I'm like, we got to do it. We've done it for the last 2 or 3 years. So, all right, so let me see if I remember how to get you guys solo on the screen here. So let's go with Jake here.
Yes, I love being first.
Yes, we'll
so I don't have to follow CBus. My parting shot is, it has to go with the transfer portal, and you can see how it has helped a lot of programs, continue to be dominant, but also allow some of these other schools to have better players come in and everything. The only thing the gripe with it is the mid-season. Some of these kids are answered the transfer portal this week and trying to find other places. And I believe the rule is they could technically go to a different college at this point. Only thing I wish is they would put like recruiting season. There's only so many days that the kids can be on campus, when you get offered, when they can accept it and show up. And I hope NCAA puts that on because, I think I heard something on the news, like USC has over 40 transfers that came in with Lincoln Riley. So, each kid deserves the right to transfer, definitely one time, but I would like to see there be a time when those kids can, and not just in the middle of the season.
And I'll tell you that transfer portal real quick. Good point. I think it's helped a lot of the FCS schools too. A lot of those bigger college kids are going to play in the FCS, and I think you see it in some of the big FCS wins. But I think it hurts the senior in high school or the junior in high school that's being recruited, because a lot of those colleges are taking the transfer portal kids over to high school kids. So definitely a good one, Jake. Well, I'm sure Medicis doesn't want to go after CBus. So I'm going to let Medicis go here before him.
Well, I'm like you. I did not come in with a parting shot, so I'm just going to wing it. Youth sports. All right. We've had a rough time with youth sports in this community. Let's make sure we support all the kids that are playing. Let's make sure the parents do not ruin it for the kids, and make sure that the kids enjoy the sports. They're just, now that I'm getting in as a parent as opposed to a coach, I'm seeing the other end of it. I watched, a U8 soccer game where parents were booing kids because they were too physical, and it's sad. So I just think, parents, we got to make sure that we're not ruining it for the kids. I mean, this is still recreation for them. They're still learning and enjoying, and, let the kids be kids.
Yeah, that's one thing I can say over the last couple of years with my son as he's gotten older. you definitely see that with a lot of the parents, and it's really sad. The parents would actually boo and cheer for somebody that's gotten hurt. It's completely uncalled for. So I'm with you on that, Nick. Well, the best. I was going to say the best for last, but
calm down.
What do you got?
I want to talk about the Big Ten media deal. $7 billion, guys, plus escalators. You're talking over $1 billion annually. I feel like I got to do my Austin Powers, right? So, in terms of the current deal, right, I think it resets the bar when we start having these conversations about NIL and, oh my gosh, these coaches are getting paid so much. Let's all stop and take a minute. These Big Ten schools are going to get over $70 million per member in the 16-team Big Ten as it currently stands. And that does not count bowl money, guys, or NCAA March Madness money. So, look, college football, whether we like it or not, it's big business. It's been big business for a long time now, and the numbers are following it from a dollars and cents perspective. We don't have to like it, but I'm done hearing about, oh my gosh, we're paying these kids for what? How do they get all this money? They have been riding these kids forever to make this type of money. It's about time they get a slice of the pie.
Man, oh man, I got to try to wing this thing. Well, I had two of them. I kind of touched on the FCS stuff on the beginning of the show. I was so happy to see the FCS and all these schools that get paid $1.5 million to go play the big boys and see some of these schools win. But the other one I was going to talk about was the Scott Frost thing. I've always been a Scott Frost guy, and I think going back, and I hope he lands back on his feet. Again, I know he will, because I want to see the guy have some success. I still think Scott Frost is a good football coach that can win games at the high level. I just think he fell into a situation at Nebraska with all that pressure going back home and winning. And again, when you take a 5-22 record in close games and single score games, I think they said, and I said it earlier in the show, if you flip the script and he won those games, I think we're talking about a completely different Scott Frost and Nebraska team. So my shout out is going to be to Scott Frost. Go to Alabama, go to Clemson, get yourself back on your feet. Go get another Power 5 job, which I do think he will get another Power 5 job at some point in time. And I think he'll be much happier, and I think we'll see him win at the college level. So best of luck to Scott Frost, and I hope he lands back on his feet. So, well, guys, we're out of time. Hopefully you guys enjoyed it. It was good to have you guys back on and talk some college football again. I'll reach out to you guys. We'll do it again probably within the next 2 to 3 weeks.
Thanks, Coach. Always a blast.
Yeah, sounds
Always
good.
fun.
All right, guys. Appreciate it. So nice to have the guys back for tonight and talk some college football. I think we can probably talk college football for 2 to 3 hours. I know we do it on Saturday mornings on the radio show as well. Always good to get everybody's thoughts and takes on college football, the landscape of college football. One topic that we didn't get to, I'll make sure we get into it the next time, is the playoff expanding from 4 teams to 12 teams. So we'll definitely get into that and more the next time here on the Rock Pile, the No Huddle podcast. So on behalf of the entire crew that was on here tonight, make sure to tune in Sunday morning from 9 to 11 on WKAL Talk Radio 1450 to the Mohawk Valley Sports Watch. And I appreciate everybody's time tonight. Thank the coaches. And thanks to CBus for tuning in. So as I say in the Rock Pile, every time I'm on, the Rock Pile is where dreams become reality.